Welcome to the Nitro College Football Show. I'm Burl.
And I'm Streit.
And today we're going to be talking about week 8 of the college football season. Georgia lays a beat down on number 1 Texas. Alabama drops its second game of the season, and Oregon rises to number 1. What's going on with Indiana and more? This is the Nitro Show. But before we get started, we'd like to take a minute to thank you for tuning in. We're still a new show trying to build an audience. So if you enjoy the show, please give us a like, leave a comment, and subscribe, and tell a friend.
Thanks. So tonight, we're going to start out talking about Georgia traveling down to Austin to take on the number 1 Longhorns. And Georgia walks out of Texas with a 30-15 victory. I don't know about you, Burl, but the game was exactly what Georgia needed to fix a season that at some point kind of seemed like we were going off the rails a little bit. Nobody in the media believed that Georgia was the same team. This Texas juggernaut was suddenly the new face of the SEC, if you believe the media. And Georgia's just went in and put a good old SEC ass whooping on them. It was a great game to watch on television. The presentation was awesome. But Burl, you were lucky enough to go to the game down in Austin. Talk a little bit about what your experience was, the game day experience, and how the fans were, and what it was like to see Georgia take it to Texas.
Man, it was freaking awesome. As you can tell, my voice is still not back from the game because I cheered my butt off and was really, really loud, as was the rest of the Georgia fans. Austin, Texas, great place. You know, the Formula One race was out there. So we ended up going to a practice round, which was pretty cool. And the people there, the fans, the Texas fans, they were really cool. They were really hospitable. You know, we didn't have any trouble with anybody. You know, the only blip was the students going nuts and throwing crap on the field. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. It's actually a really nice setup if you're an away fan. Because you know, if you're on a away trip, you don't really know where you're going to tailgate, you know, what's going on because it's a brand new place that you might not have ever been, which was the case for me. So me and our good buddy Brent Travers were trying to figure out where we're going to go. We ended up going to this bar that was like the oldest bar in Austin, and apparently it's like a big game day spot. So that was really cool because we were able to watch the Alabama game and some of the others. And after that, we just walked straight to the stadium because it wasn't that far. And around the stadium, they actually have concessions and all kinds of things going on. It was pretty cool. So we were able to buy beer, buy food, whatever, and walk around, talk to people, hang out. And they also had a carnival going on. So there's like a Ferris wheel and rides and stuff. It was insane. So really great atmosphere, you know, pregame. Then it took a little time to get to our seats because we were in the very top last row of the stadium.
So being that top row, how high was it? Because I've been to the top stadium of Tiger Stadium at LSU. And that stadium is unique because it's very, very high, but it's really close to the field. It's almost like straight up steep. And so even though we were on the top of the stadium when we went there, we didn't feel like we were very far from the field. So how was the view from up there?
It was really good. It was quite a treacherous climb to get up there. I was a little worried going up those stairs. Didn't know if I was going to make it or not. I didn't go back down the whole game because I was like, no, screw that. But the view was good. You know, I could have like reached out and grabbed the jets when they flew over. That's how high we were.
How was I saw some pictures of the light show that they did with the drones. Was that cool?
Yeah. So their fourth quarter thing. So, you know, every team has their fourth quarter. Georgia, we have got the Krypton fanfare and all that good stuff. So they had theirs. They were playing Thunderstruck, which I appreciated because That's what John Smoltz used to come out to, and it was awesome. And they had 2 sets of drones going on, one and on one side of the end zone and one on the opposite end of the field, and they were kind of like pinging back and forth with what they were trying to do. But the coolest thing that they did was they formed the shape of the Longhorn symbol, logo, whatever, and then they had fireworks going off out of the drones, and then it was like smoking and
cool.
dripping fire from the Longhorn face. And I was like, man, that's the most WWE thing I've ever seen. No one knew what I was talking about.
Well, that sounds very cool, man. I'm glad you got a chance to go out there. Now that they're in the conference, who knows when the next time we'll be out there? Because hell, we still have never been to Texas A&M. But at some point, if it works out with schedules, I'd love to get back out there, take a visit, because it's one of the cathedrals of college football, right? One of the few stadiums that's over 100,000 people, and they said after the game that was the largest attendance crowd in the history of Texas.
I believe
football,
it.
So
I mean, it was the biggest game in their history in that stadium, and it was nice. I mean, it's a great trip to go on. The campus is gorgeous. We walked around the campus before game day just to see what's what. Go to game day. We skipped that because night before
we've seen enough of that.
Yep. I know what game day's like. I mean, it's
the back
whatever.
Of some dudes' heads.
Yeah, exactly. So I valued getting a little bit of extra sleep, sleeping off a little hangover so I could prepare for the game and have a lot of fun. And man, what a freaking game. I was nervous the whole time because I'm just that Georgia fan who's seen so many leads blown.
Oh, I was yelling at the television after that reverse call, man. I was salty.
Yeah, that's about when I started losing my voice. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like it was an awesome trip. Glad you got a chance to go. Let's talk a little bit about the game, a little bit more in detail. I mean, the story of this game, the biggest thing that happened in this game was the Georgia defense that we expected this season, that we got some glimpses of during the Clemson game, showed up and showed out. That was a Georgia defense performance on par with any we've seen over the last few years.
Yeah, I mean, it was an absolute dominating defensive performance. It was so much fun to watch because I've always been a bigger fan of watching a really good defense at work. Think about back in the day, we had the big hitters of Thomas Davis and Greg Blue and those guys. That was what I've always wanted. I loved watching. Offense, great. We want to score. It's awesome. But to watch a dominating defense, there's nothing like it. Yeah. And the defensive line, they were the story of the game.
Right.
They took over the game. Jalen Walker
was a man possessed.
Yeah.
3 sacks, 5 tackles for loss, fumble recovery. Coming into the season, everybody knew Michael Williams, Malachi Starks, first round potential. Jalen Walker made himself some money on Saturday night.
Yeah, he did. I mean, he might be the next Walker that goes number 1.
Right. And, it was good to see Michael back out there. Still not 100% because he only played about 40 snaps, I think. But, man, he made an impact when he was out there too.
Yeah, he did.
Give him a couple weeks in Florida. You got Walker coming on one side and Michael coming off the other.
Yeah,
you got a freshman quarterback for Florida back there in a couple weeks.
Woo. Yeah, he should talk to Arch and see what he thinks.
Right.
But man, so player of the game, in my opinion, yes, Jalen Walker had a phenomenal game, but a guy that has been given just crap for the past 2 years, Dalen Everett, had the game of his life. 7 tackles, 1 sack, Uh, he had an interception. He had the big hit on Quinn Ewers, caused the fumble, and then recovered it.
Yep. It was a
I mean,
redemption game for Everett.
great,
And
great
it
game.
started off bad. He got a 15-yard penalty on the first drive. Texas picked up 2 first downs on their first drive. They didn't do anything hardly the rest of the first half. They went right after him, and he got that penalty. But he really showed up tonight. He was expected to be the leader, back there at the corners this year. He started last year opposite Lassiter, and Lassiter was locked down. And teams picked on him last year, and you would hope that he would see the same kind of progression that, Lassiter saw, because Lassiter was kind of the understudy to Keelan Ringo, who was the understudy to Eric Stokes. We've had that progression of those solid corners.
Mm-hmm.
And he stepped up. He had his best game. I think for most of the Georgia defense, a lot of them had their best games of their career. Warren Brinson is a fifth-year guy who's missed a lot of this year. Warren Brinson was a man possessed on run defense. He was blowing people up on the line. Good old Chaz Chambliss was great in run coverage. He was the one who was hitting Ewers as Ewers just threw it up. And on their last drive, when they got to about the 30-yard line and they had that fourth down, he got the pressure there. It was just an all-around fantastic game. Raylan Wilson had a big play. It's kind of nice when you've got Michael Williams, former 5-star, Jalen Walker, high 4, low 5-star, Raylan Wilson, 5-star. All those guys that we've always talked about potential, and we knew it was there, but man, they all showed up on Saturday.
Yeah, if only our receivers could catch.
Yeah, we've got some offensive issues. As good as the game was, this was not even a B-level performance from the offense.
No, not at all. I haven't been one to hate on Bobo this year, because I actually do think he's a really good coordinator, as much as people want to give him crap.
Yeah.
Outside of this game, Georgia scores a lot of points, gets a lot of yards. You can disagree with play calls here and there. People even disagreed with Monken, even though they won't admit it. They did. But this game, he called a really poor game.
Especially in the second half.
Especially in the fourth quarter.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. So in the first half, for the first time all season, the run game was working. Georgia.
Yes.
I mean, ETN was getting holes. He had like 7 carries for 70 yards to start the game out, and ended up with like 87 yards on like 19 carries.
Yep.
So there in the first half, he was getting holes and he was moving the ball. But then in the second half, we went away from the run game. I think we only had like 8 or 9 rush attempts out of the running backs in the second half of the game.
Yeah.
And the everybody's going to point to the worst example was that time that we came out there. We got the ball. There's about 10 minutes left. We got a turnover. And we went 3 and out and ran like 30 seconds off the clock. Like those type of decisions you can't do when you're on the road. You have to kill clock. And we almost didn't even run 30 seconds because the third down play was a pass that they had good pressure on it. And Beck got rid of it and got it to Cash Jones, who got like 3 yards. But if he would have dropped the pass, we'd essentially ran no time off the clock in that drive. So
yeah, that was a really bad series, and literally every Georgia fan in the stands looked at each other and like, what is why did we throw 3 straight passes? It's the fourth quarter. We have a good lead. Let's kill some clock. I mean, that's football 101.
And the bad part about that, was that the same drive that Humphreys dropped the ball?
I think so.
Because if London Humphreys catches that pass, we've seen what he does when he gets the ball and turns up the field. If he catches that ball, he might have scored a touchdown. And that's the second time this year that he's done that, where he's had a wide open pass and he's turned his head before he catches it. He is eager to turn that ball up the field. And unfortunately, we can't have that right now. We don't have the wide receiver depth with the loss of Colby Young, the loss of Ra Thomas. We do not have the right wide receiver depth to do that. We have got to catch the ball.
Yeah. Ra was definitely a a hands guy.
Right.
Like he would make some really ridiculous catches.
Yeah. And I mean, without those two guys, we also don't have any receivers over 6'2". So guys have got to make plays when they're hitting the hands. And Kirby pointed that out. They asked him in the post game. They said, why did Carson struggle tonight? And Kirby said, did he? Because last time I checked, the first 4 passes he threw were drops.
Yeah, and they would have been big gainers.
Right, and that can do something to a quarterback's psyche. If
Absolutely.
He's being asked to throw the ball 40-plus times at a game, and you've got 6 drops at least, man, it hurts your confidence. Now, the one you could call the one unlucky at the 10 that ended up being the interception, you could call that a drop, but that was a bad pass.
Yeah, he didn't give his receiver a good chance to
no, I mean, Lucky's 6'5", and he couldn't catch it.
Right.
Put the ball down, and it's at least a first down. We could have gotten a first down at the 3, but he might have scored. He had, forward momentum. The interception on the pass to Arian Smith, and we'll talk about the controversy later, but that one, it looked really bad on Carson, but I think it was on Arian Smith because
it was 100% on Arian Smith.
They were talking about the post game. That play was outs. The other 2 guys on the other side of the field turned and went out toward the sideline when they were supposed to, and Arian Smith didn't. He engaged that outside corner. He was supposed to turn and go to the outside, and that's where Carson threw the ball. So
that's the second pick that I think you can attribute directly to Arian Smith running the wrong route.
And the thing there is Carson Beck and Arian Smith are both 5th-year seniors. And this is not the first time in the season that they have not been on the same page. Of anybody who should be on the same page with Carson Beck, it should be Arian Smith. Absolutely.
Yeah. We just don't have the elite receiver talent this year, and it shows. Yep. But it was nice to see that we actually had a run game. We just need to keep running it.
Yep, use it.
Yeah.
We've got Etienne. Etienne looks great. Frazier is explosive, but he's not getting great chances, but I think we need to continue.
I mean, he only had 4 carries. So, I mean, he's no running back worth their salt's going to have any, momentum or rhythm with just a handful of carries.
Yeah. So as much as there were offensive issues, we need to talk about the real issue with this game, and that's the officiating. Anybody who's listening to this podcast knows what happened with the reverse call. The issue has nothing to do with the call itself. It was the wrong call, and they ultimately got the call right. The problem is that the referees confirmed the call. The referee announced the call. So normally if you refs get together and they wave it off, the ref will pick up his flag, do this number, and say, there's no penalty. They didn't do that. They announced the penalty. They spotted the ball, and 20 seconds ran off the clock. Time ran off the clock. That means the ball was spotted and in play.
Mm-hmm.
Georgia was at the line about to snap it when the first referee noticed the first bottle on the field. They stopped it then. They went to pick up that bottle, and that's when the rest of them started coming. And they said it was 2 stops. They stopped the clock once when they noticed the first one. They started the clock again and then stopped it again. So if Georgia could have snapped the ball in that period, there would have been a play. There is no precedent ever in NCAA history that I know of where a non-reviewable play was later turned over. And it doesn't matter if the referee called it wrong or whatever. It doesn't matter that even if he did say it was wrong, they announced it, and the optics are horrible. Because the only reason it got overturned was because people threw trash on the field.
I know it's a really bad precedent. And the other thing that was weird is they showed the replay on the big screen and really zoomed in.
Yeah.
I'm an old fogey, so my memory's not always that great, but I don't remember seeing that ever happen, because whenever there is a bad call, they never show the replay.
Right. Or they show it once and they show it for a second. But those guys had, they had 10 minutes to confirm, to change their minds.
It was maddening, just for the simple fact of everything that you just said. They got the call right in the end, but the process in which they came to it was completely jacked.
Yeah.
Like Mark Rick said it this week, he's like, you made the call. Yeah, it was a bad call, but that happens. But you made it.
Right.
And just because they throw stuff on the field, you can't just reconvene and overturn it. That was just a terrible display of officiating. And then on top of that, the SEC putting out that statement.
Oh, that was total trash.
They even got some words wrong in that statement. Yeah. They said the ball was intercepted at the Texas 42 and returned
to the Texas
9.
Yeah.
I'm like,
oh, that was hastily put out. Somebody online said it's comparison to news dump on Friday afternoon at 6:00. Like, get it out and hope nobody really sees it and pays attention and nobody can talk to about it before it's like 12 hours old. They didn't take any responsibility. They didn't say anything about the process being wrong. I mean, It was a total PR mishandling. And thank goodness for college football as a whole, thank goodness Georgia still won that game.
Yes.
I mean, as us as Georgia fans, yes, we're proud we won. And yes, we're proud that we can say that we still won despite that call not happening. Because heck, if we would have won and they wouldn't have overturned it, we know how it was when Georgia played games and guys got hurt and how many excuses people made. Can you imagine those Texas fans?
Oh, yeah. I mean, never hear the end of it.
I mean, and the officiating in the game overall was it wasn't a fix, but this was Texas's crowning in the SEC. It was their welcome party, and man, every single ticky-tack call, that goal line stand, we scored twice before the 4th down. Beck got in, and Etienne got in before that, clearly on the replay.
Yeah, it was comical at watching the game, because every time there was a flag, we're like, it's going to go against us.
I mean, think about it this way: the Texas's first scoring drive, they had 2 third down penalties that kept that drive going after we spotted them short. Michael got called for that face mask on Archer. He would have had a 3rd sack in the game. And then and then all the targeting calls. Now Kirby Smart is appealing those to the SEC office. They are trying to get Dan Jackson's especially erased, because it's pretty clear that the guy lowered his head into Dan Jackson. Dan Jackson wasn't in bad position. They're trying to get those overturned, and they can. That's a change in the rules. The office can overturn the suspension.
Well, so Aguero's was even worse call, because that was a perfect form tackle. Right. That's what they teach you when you were 9 years old and you're first starting to play. He was in perfect position. He stuck his face mask into the receiver's chest and picked his legs up and drove him to the ground. Yep. When you do that, it's inevitable. Part of your helmet is going to touch their face mask.
Right.
That is not targeting.
Greg McElroy, I think, said it best. He said, this is football, and there is helmet-to-helmet contact on every single play.
Yeah, you're not going to avoid it.
You're not going to avoid it, and these guys are making split-second decisions and turning their heads and their bodies, and they're fast. The original intent was good, and I don't mind the targeting penalty, but they need to treat it like the NFL. This kicking kids out is stupid. It needs to stop. The NFL doesn't do that. They give them a penalty and they move on.
You know what they say, the pathway to hell is filled with good intentions.
It is. But at the end of the day, Georgia won. They've moved back up to number 2. Great win. A couple interesting facts I saw. This was Georgia's first ever road win over an AP top-ranked team. Georgia has never. Because you got to remember, a lot of Georgia's games against top-ranked teams, Florida is always in Florida, SEC championship games, things like that, or home games. We had Tennessee a couple years ago. That wasn't AP ranked, top ranked, but you just don't play the number 1 team in the country that often in the regular season. You really don't. And so this was Georgia's first ever win over the AP top ranked team on the road. And then the other thing was that this was Kirby Smart's 100th victory in his 117th game at Georgia.
Yeet.
That broke Nick Saban's record for the fastest coach to reach 100 wins at a single school.
Yeet.
Nick Saban won his 100th game at Alabama in his 118th game. So he beat Nick Saban's record by one game. And what an amazing start to Kirby's career here at Georgia. I mean, we're 9 years in, and it still feels like it's just getting going. But yeah, just a great day for the Georgia program.
It's awesome. The first 40 years of our Georgia fandom were really rough. But now, it's so much fun. I was really happy because that's the first time I've been to an away game that was a big game and saw Georgia win.
Yeah.
So that was just amazing to me because I've been to Tennessee twice and we lost those games and it was an awful experience. I went to South Carolina one time. That was a lot of fun, but it's South Carolina. It's not that big of a game.
Right.
So yeah, it was good to see. It's just a lot of fun right now to be a Georgia fan and play in these type of games where the whole nation's watching, and just to be in that stratosphere where we get to play these big games and they're really, really great games that could go either way. That's fun. All right, so moving on to another big game this weekend. Alabama loses at Tennessee. So Tennessee busts out the cigars and storm the field again because they're trash.
Why would you do that? You beat them the last time you played them at home. I understand doing it last time. They hadn't beaten them, there in a long time, but
exactly.
You beat them there 2 years ago. And you are Tennessee. I mean, you are a blue blood program in the NCAA.
No,
I didn't get it.
They're Tech. They win a game at home. They storm the field.
Or Clemson, who storms the field every game.
Yeah, I thought that was dumb. But the game though was fun to watch.
Man, it was ugly.
It was ugly.
An ugly offensive game.
I was happy to see that though, because you remember back at the beginning of the season, they were already handing Nico the Heisman Trophy after 2 games, saying, oh, I don't need to see him play anybody big. I see what he's doing now. He's the best quarterback. I'm like, come on.
Dude, if Tennessee didn't have Dylan Sampson, I don't know where they'd be. I mean, to me, he might be the SEC player of the year right now. He has been their offense.
Absolute beast.
He is carrying that team in every game. And Nico's got talent. Don't get me wrong, but
oh yeah, he's good. He's fine, but he's not that next level yet.
Not yet. He's young. I mean,
he probably will be.
He probably will. Yeah, he's that's the thing. They put him up on this pedestal, and he never started a game before. You got it. This is the SEC. Sometimes you got to grow into that role, and
yeah,
they put him up there before that. He's got the tools, and he definitely could be. And he's going to come to Athens in a few weeks, and who knows? But right now, he's not there. Their offense has sputtered the last few games, and they escaped because the only thing worse than their offense right now is Alabama's. Yeah,
which is mind blowing. Really, because they have weapons on offense. I mean, Milroe, say what you will about him, he's got a lot of talent.
Milroe has been the only one carrying their rushing game. That's nuts. They have Justice Haynes. He spurned Georgia because he didn't want to follow his dad and whatever. But man, you're not creating your own legacy there if they're not giving you the ball and giving you chances.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, I was really disappointed when I heard that.
I think it's safe to say that even though it's early, that the honeymoon for Kellen DeBoer is over. You've already got the Alabama fans begging for Nick to come back and wanting to fire him, questioning whether he's ready to be an SEC coach, when just 3 weeks ago he was the newest and greatest and going to be at Alabama forever and take over the mantle. So my, how things quickly turn.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if I firmly believe that if Nick Saban was still the coach at Alabama, they'd be undefeated right now.
Most likely. They would definitely not have dropped the game at Vanderbilt with Nick Saban as coach.
No.
And, you know, they are definitely going through those pains of change. Just the little things that Nick Saban was always so buttoned up on, the communication with his staff, the polish, the tucked in shirts, and the not silly plays. And you're just seeing things that you don't see. When we saw it a couple weeks ago, starting with Malachi Moore, I mean, those are things that didn't happen under Nick Saban. And I don't know, did you see the picture of the play they ran where they had the guys pretending like they were shooting jump shots?
Yeah.
Like,
what the heck?
And they were asked about it after the game, and the coach said, "We don't run anything that we don't practice." So that means that was...
So they practicing jump shots?
On like a goal line play?
Yeah.
I don't know.
No. Yeah. Saban wouldn't allow that to happen.
Yeah.
And yeah, they definitely wouldn't have lost to Vandy, and they would have steamrolled this Tennessee team.
Yeah.
With the way that they're playing right now.
Yeah. So,
but
for Tennessee,
good news for the rest of us, right?
Yeah. For Tennessee, though, this gets really interesting now. They have the game in Athens on November 16th, and you know, looking at the rest of their schedule and Georgia's upcoming schedule, conceivably that could be for a spot in the SEC championship game. So it'll be a big game, and I think the winner of that, you know, pretty much punches their ticket to the playoff, whether they win the SEC championship or not. They're in. So we'll see what happens in Athens in a couple weeks.
Yep, should be fun.
So on another topic of fun, I want to talk a little bit about what's going on with Army and Navy. And you say service academies. What? Army is 7-0. Navy is 6-0. They are now ranked 23rd and 24th in the country. They're in first place in the American Athletic Conference that they share, and they are the second and third highest ranked group of 5 teams right now. Their schedules, they don't have much left. They both have a game with Notre Dame. So I think Navy plays Notre Dame this week, and I think Army plays them in 2 weeks. The ramifications of those games are huge beyond just for Army and Navy. Notre Dame right now has 1 loss, and it was a bad loss, but it was early, and their schedule the rest of the way, outside of these games, these are their only ranked games on their schedule, because they've got a bad USC team and, you know, and a bad Stanford team. And Notre Dame, once again, doesn't have to go to you know, a conference championship game. So if they get to 11-1, they're going to be in the playoff. They're going to take an at-large bid from, you know, from the SEC or the ACC. So if Army and Navy can knock them off, that'll knock them out. Notre Dame is the only current loss for Texas A&M. Texas A&M is leading the SEC right now, and they play LSU this weekend. Texas A&M is, you know, hoping to God that Notre Dame stays undefeated for the rest of the way, because that strengthens their claim to try to get into the college football playoff. So huge ramifications. But let's just say, for example, that Army and Navy do win. Army and Navy, as we know, play the last game of the regular college football season, and it's always the week after championship week. Well, Army and Navy are in the American Athletic Conference, which does not have divisions. So it matches its 2 top teams like most conferences now in a conference championship game, which will be played the week before the scheduled Army-Navy game. So Army-Navy could play in a conference championship game and then play the traditional Army-Navy game. And if both those teams somehow make it to those games undefeated, one of those teams will most likely be playing for a spot in the college football playoff. In 2024, Army or Navy
could be
in a playoff.
unless if they do play back to back,
They split them.
They split them. Yeah,
but
then they're out.
Right. So the team ahead of them from the group of 5 is Boise State, but Boise State has a loss. So if these two teams stay undefeated, they would certainly jump a 1-loss Boise State, especially if they both have a win over Notre Dame.
Right.
So very interesting. Something, I never thought I would be talking about is the service academies competing for spots in a playoff.
The triple option is back, baby.
The triple option is back, baby.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Indiana is killing it right now. 7-0.
56-7.
56-7 over Nebraska.
Over a 1-loss Nebraska who was looking decent.
Yeah.
Like, their only ranked game left is Ohio State. And they get game day this weekend for the first time ever.
That's pretty awesome. I'm excited to watch them play against Ohio State. That'll be fun.
Yep, that's their big one left on the schedule now. Their quarterback got hurt at the end of the game last week. And they said, I think it's a wrist or hand injury. There's a chance he could be back for Ohio State, but he's kind of been driving that engine. They're hosting game day this weekend, and they're hosting Washington. So Washington got that win over Michigan, right? A few weeks ago. Hasn't been a great first year, in the Big Ten for Washington, but they're still very capable. So interesting to see. Big things happen in Bloomington, right?
Indiana gonna walk right into that playoff, and they're used to the other tournament as a basketball team.
Right, they're gearing up for Midnight Madness, not for games that mean something in the football field.
Right. Cool. Yeah, so Indiana, good story. We'll be tracking that, see where it goes. So after a big weekend of college football, the new rankings came out. We got Oregon at number 1, which is no surprise. But now we got Georgia at number 2. People finally, I guess, they remembered that, oh yeah, Georgia's actually legit and Kirby Smart is a killer. So so they're back up there. Was it Texas dropped down to 5 and right. Bama down to 15.
Bama down to 15. And you know who is in the rankings this week? Vanderbilt at number 25. And where do they go?
Texas goes to Vandy, which I'm looking forward to that.
Another interesting thing in the rankings right now, once again, we talked about it a little bit last week, the Big 12. You've got 3 teams, and they all kind of have games where they play each other that could really get interesting when we're looking at playoff seedings. Iowa State, BYU, Kansas State. Iowa State and BYU are undefeated right now. Kansas State's got 1 loss. I think Kansas State plays Iowa State at the end of the year. You could easily end up a situation where you've got an 11-1 Kansas State and an 11-1 Iowa State, 12-0 BYU. 2 of them play in the conference title game. What happens then? Like, everybody kind of assumed the Big Ten and SEC, are probably going to get 3 or 4 bids. But if you've got Big 12 teams with these undefeated records, like, I don't know how you can hold them out.
I don't think you can. I mean, it will all be revealed at the end of the season,
right? Because you've got 3 strong teams in the ACC too. You've got undefeated Miami, you've got a strong Clemson team, and you've got SMU, who's got 1 loss, who's kind of making some noise too. So, could be interesting.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the Clemson and Miami tying up at some point.
Yeah. So this week, Oregon hosts Illinois. Illinois, who had a big win over Michigan last week, has bumped up into the top 20. So that'll be a good matchup for Oregon. I think that's their last ranked matchup of the season. So they win Saturday, they're going to coast.
I got to say something.
Yep.
Illinois' uniforms were ridiculous.
They were. The Red Grange. It was the 100-year anniversary of their stadium. So that was That was what they're doing.
But the helmet, I mean, painted as a leather, the helmet looked terrible.
Oh, really? Oh, I thought it was awesome.
Oh, I thought it was terrible, man. Like the rest of the uniform was fine. I mean, it wasn't great, but man, the helmet, I couldn't get over that. That
Oh,
was
really?
just too
I thought
much.
the helmet was cool. But the TV presentation on CBS, the old SEC time slot, they had Danielson and Brad Nessler in like black and white with like old sport coats on, and they had Jenny Dell on the sideline was dressed up like 1920s, like a flapper and stuff. And it was a pretty cool presentation. So it was honoring the 100-year anniversary of their stadium there. But
Well,
yeah,
I was glad to see him win. That was awesome.
Yep. Other games this weekend. So Georgia obviously is on the bye. Florida next week. We mentioned Texas goes over to Vandy, ranked Vandy. We'll see what happens there.
Don't you love the Vandy guy on SEC shorts?
Oh, it's perfect. It's so perfect.
It's so funny.
We talked about the implications of Navy Notre Dame this weekend. That's big. Conjunction with that, Boise State takes on UNLV. Once again, Boise State right now is the top-ranked group of 5. UNLV early in the year was a candidate. Lots of people thought before their quarterback quit on them.
Yeah.
But still should be a good game. Once again, implications for the playoffs. And then we've got LSU, Texas A&M. And it's kind of an elimination game for the SEC championship, which is weird because right now Texas A&M and LSU are the only 2 undefeated teams in SEC conference play. So it's kind of a SEC championship play in because LSU still has Alabama, but you would think if LSU plays as they have been since that first game of the year against USC, they should be able to handle Alabama in their current state anyway.
Yeah. All signs point to yes on that.
Yep. So, that's going to wrap up the Nitro College Football Show for this week. Once again, thanks for tuning in. Give us a like, leave us a comment, subscribe to the channel, and we'll talk to you later.
Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.